Names, arrivals, stairs, and songs. Chapter 15. The construction of the gingerbread house neared its completion. Together they wordlessly studied it, looked it over, and made mental checklists of what needed to be accomplished before they could consider the work be truly finished. As they circled the table, they made little adjustments, pieced back together some loose bits of trim, straightened the gingerbread ponies, and placed a few more candies to even out the visual balance. As they went, they were suddenly aware of the sound of hose overhead, ringing out softly across the ceiling above. Pinky had been out late last night, rehearsing her part in the heart-warming passage that she was going to perform that very evening. They had not woken her. They knew that the train trip to the capital and all that involved would tax even her abundant energy. As he listened, her voice seemed to float down the stairs, the pure tone of the mare filling her bakery and home as they listened to the holiday tune. Above them, the sound of her bathtub filling across them, and the old pipes rattled a sort of harmony with her song. Carrot lit the cupcake, saw her too listening to the cheerful strains of Pinky's song. In a few years that had passed since her arrival, they'd become accustomed to her voice, her bounce, and very presence in the house. Truth be told, they were glad for it, and learned from it, had come to see her as, "Hello!" rose the voice of the pink mare, the expression behind it evident, even as it fell quietly down the stairs. And once, a look shot between them. Amelia carried a cupcake leapt for the stand nearby. A few moments later, the water began to erupt out of the sinks, come cascading down the steps and dripping through a few weak spots in the ceiling. The couple stood together, the umbrellas open above the gingerbread house, protecting it from any harm. As the water began to slow, they simply stood there, knowing that they had come to know that life with Pinkie Pie was a daring adventure, or nothing, one that they had accepted as part of the greater journey of their marriage. As they stood there in the dripping kitchen, holding umbrellas awkwardly, she pressed herself to his chest once more. As he lowered his head over her, they sighed and laughed, soaking in the absurdity that had become such a welcome part of their lives, and all that came with that. It would have been easy enough to get mad, to demand an explanation from the young mare. Instead, they simply swayed together as the last few drops fell, knew how Pinky would react, and knew how they had learned to react in time with her, how they too had grown in having her there. It was all part of life with Pinky, a life they had welcomed indeed. Instead, all that they did was continue to rock one another and protect the gingerbread house, the dollop of white frosting upon Carrot's nose still the only pressing concern in Cupcake's mind, as the warmth of the ovens began to turn the water to vapor and a bracing mugginess overtook the kitchen. The summer after Pinky had arrived was perhaps a little cloudier than most, maybe just a few degrees colder on average. The Pegasi doing their best to satiate the needs of Equestria while striking equilibrium with the world outside its borders. There were still more than enough days to go swimming and sit under a shady tree to find blackberries and stay up late into the warm nights. Under their tutelage, Pinkie Pie was becoming something of an accomplished baker, even if the going was difficult at times. She had taken to all that Carrot and Cupcake had sought to teach her with energy and gusto. It was her lack of focus that sometimes resulted in problems. More than once she had returned to a project, only to begin the next one, discovering the burned remains of a torte or charred crust of pie steeped within the oven. When she would smile, she would clear away her own mess and begin again. One day, as Cupcake had been working in the kitchen, she called for Carrot to see to a customer in the showcase room. As he did, she remembered that he had gone to the city, seeking to talk to a supplier who seemed not to know the difference between dozen and gross. She began to clean herself up when the sound of Pinky's lifted from the white room beyond. At a moment, the laughter flowed around the room, Cupcake listening in as the cash register rang out for the first time under the hoof of the young mare. To her surprise, the talking continued and laughter rose again. The cash register sounded out once more. As she finished cleaning herself, she went out to the room where the treats all stood awaiting purchase. "That new girl of yours is quite a whip," said the older pony in a crumpled hat. A smile was wide across his face as he waved. As he departed the store, Cupcake looked to the beaming Pinkie Pie. "Pinky," she asked, "did you just wait on your first customer?"
"Oh yeah, hey, I guess I did. Did I get it right? I mean, the money's still here,"
said Pinky, opening the cash drawer once more and suddenly looking very concerned.
"Of course it is, dearie,"
answered Cupcake, assuaging Pinky's fear. I'm just surprised that you seem to enjoy it so much. Did you enjoy it? Pinky giggled.
Well, yeah, I did. I like talking to ponies, and ponies like talking to me, and if I could meet every pony, be nice to every pony, and...
Cupcake smiled at her. Pinky surprised he felt Cupcake leaning to her. Well, as he grabbed her up in a hug. Carrot Cake returned to his shop with a refund check. To his surprise, it was Pinkie Pie who placed it within the register. A rather full-looking tip jar being evidence of the success of her interaction with the patrons of the bakery. Clearly, working with other ponies was not her weakness. The problem was focus. Within the mare was something that didn't seem to be falling into place. Something was blocking her large attempts to utilize her mark. It was something wrong inside of her. Some simple cadence of her own magic that was going unfocused. She seemed to be having trouble developing her own rhythm, as though she had somehow missed a cog in one of her gears. She began to sing a song or dance a dance, and with that all of her abilities would clog up, and she would seem to freeze. Carrot Cupcake would see that she wanted to power through it, utilize that part of herself. But it was somehow as though that part of her was blocked up. A part of her simply had to release itself with randomness, a useless expenditure of energy that seemed to draw out more out of her than it provided. There was no more evident example of that falling than the day when she asked to host the first party to be held in the attic. Upon reopening the passageway to the long soon-to-be a closet, they now had a way to access the room without passing through any of their living spaces. As the door came off, it was indeed shown to be a stairwell, a fine one with big steps and a proper railing. A small knot of stallions, ranging from Carrot's friends, Cupcake's brother and nephew, and Carrot Corey themselves, had assembled with the express purpose of removing the old trapdoor and priming the floor and ceiling. As with most projects, it involved to most of the stallions enjoying the products of the bakery, while cursing Corey and Carrot did most of the work. Pinky had cleaned the space until it shone. Carrot watching open mouth as she somehow held herself aloft with balloons to clear the overhead beams of their dust. It was a birthday party for an older mare. Even as the patrons had grumbled about climbing the stairs, they all went quiet as they entered the room, soon calling out how beautiful it was as Pinky greeted them. Carrot retreated downstairs to tend to the bakery, seeing to the customers that were coming in, even as the party went down 2 floors above. It started off well enough, as Cupcake or Pinky would come downstairs to fetch more treats. He inquired how it was all going. Oh, just dandy, Cupcake would say. The dealer returned to his baking. A few minutes later, Pinkie Pie came downstairs and tried to the kitchen, dropping plates into the sink. And how are things going up there? He asked, smiling to her.
Oh, pretty good, I think.
She said a little smile before heading back up to the stairs. Tilda Zen watched her go. Seemed to be less enthusiastic than she had been. Well, later, Cupcake came down the stairs. As he fetched up some more little cask of things to drink, he looked at her and asked, How's it going? The look he gave him was not enthusiastic. It's going okay, she said, her eyes telling him that something had happened. What? He asked while concern raising his voice. Ginger Snap, what's wrong? Oh, cut it, she said, leaning against him gently. Nothing's wrong. But is it going right? That's the problem. Carrot brushed against his wife, nuzzled her, and asked for an explanation. She lifted her head and whispered in his ear. She's trying so hard, Carrot. But she's nervous. Nervous on the inside, she can't get past it. This isn't going well for her. Oh, poor Pinkie Pie, she's missing her mark. Whispered Cupcake, so small and exciting in her voice. With that, she tried it off again, leaving him struggling to understand how the ball of energy that had bounced in their lives could be nervous about anything. This was not good. That word again. As the afternoon came to an end, Carrot met the mares who came down the stairs, held the door open for them as they departed. He tried to gauge their expressions, especially that of the mare who had been the focus of the celebration. They seemed pleased, satisfied, content, as opposed to happy, jubilant, or even cheerful. As the one mare who planned to parry met him to sell the account, he probed for answers to what had transpired above. Were you happy with the room, with how the party went? He asked, gulping slightly.
Oh, yeah, it went fine,
she answered while laying her bits on the table. Silence reigned over the room as he wrote out the receipt. Nothing went wrong, Dad, he asked as he passed it to her.
Oh, well, no, nothing too wrong,
She said. The very way she tried to face it politely, making him jump in place. But if you're going to have a party, you should have your hostess, the pig man, learn the words of the songs and the like. What? He breathed as disbelief shot through him. I mean, I'm sorry, it is our first party here, you see. Our first ever in that room.
Well,
She said, shuffling a few bits of creativity in the envelope.
thank you for using it. Yeah, best of luck with it in the future.
That the mayor laid the envelope on the counter and tried out the door. Before the door had even completely shut, Sora going up the recently discovered stairs, grabbing wildly at the envelope as he went. Pinky had told him about dozens of parties she'd thrown. Every foal in elementary school knew the words to the birthday songs. Something was wrong. This he knew. He continued straight up the stairs, rather than turning to the former closet, went up to where the door of the upstairs room met him. Cookie stood there, as though knowing he would come. As he gained the landing, she put her hoof in his and pointed across the room. Pinky stood there, slowly pushing the garbage can around from place to place, filling it with trash, leftovers, and at times seeming to try to stuff entire tables into it, an absent-minded fog. To her surprise, her mane and tail hung limp, so life itself had come out of it. As he went, she gave little sounds of worry. Carrot and Cupcake came trotting forward. As he did, she tried to smile at him. As he saw them looking at her, she realized their attempts were for nothing. They could see the expression that was going across her.
I don't know what went wrong,
She cried, seeming to jump in place and move in a little circle.
I thrown hundreds of birthday parties, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of parties. I don't know why I...
Cupcake followed her as she began to trot to the side of the attic, raised her hoof to her as she carried towards them.
I don't know why I couldn't sing,
She said as she plopped herself down in the middle of the room, her eyes turning to water.
I don't know why I couldn't dance. I do. I try all the time, but this time I couldn't, and I'm so sorry. No place gonna want to have a party here, and we...
Cupcake nuzzled her, sat with her as Carrot carried on in sympathy. A few words dropped out of Pinky, Cupcake lowering her head to try to hear them. When Pink Mare spoke again, Larry came down as a ball. Pinky, she said, gathering out her hoof of the Pink Mare. What's wrong, dearie? Oh, Pinky, please say it again.
Oh, all of a sudden, I miss my mama and papa. I want my mama and papa,
she says, tears begin to fall from her blue eyes. In one motion, Cupcake was cuddling her, rocking her. Carrot could see the emotions filling her now. She was afraid and uncertain. She didn't understand why her own magic, her mark had failed her.
My grandpa said to giggle the ghosties until they go away. But this isn't a ghostie. It's me. I can't giggle at me. I don't know how to make this go away. I don't know what to do. What to do.
She was simply too far from home. A little filly fresh off the farm and away from her family, dealing with something she did not understand. For the first time in her dawning in life, she had a problem. One that her adorable spirit seemed unable to overcome. He watched as Cupcake cradled her, rocked her, and made shushing noises. And you people wonder why I treat Pinky as the youngest of the main six.
I'm so sorry. I thought I'd do better here, but it's only worse.
Bawled Pinky, her tears getting heavier as all the little emotions she had been hiding since the day she arrived at Sugar Cube Corner revealed themselves. Carrot saw Cupcake's eyes flash at him, saw his wife raise her hoof and implore him to come to where they stood. He came to them, sat down with them, uncertain what he should do. He did not know it was the right thing to embrace this younger mare, this girl he had known for only a few weeks. As Pinky leaned into him, he received his answer. He joined his wife in the slow rocking motion, letting Pinky sit between them as the afternoon light from the windows fell across them. Mint sun tea, flavored with milk and honey. As the party sat in Pinky's little sitting room, this is what they made her drink. As they spoke quietly, they brought dinner out to her parlor, did what they could to make it seem like a quiet dinner at home. The afternoon drew into the night, and the uncertainty washed out of her eyes, replaced by honestly earned tiredness. Carrot stood, moved to an envelope he had been awkwardly carrying with him all that long afternoon. He tore it open, let the bits fall out. He pressed the share into Pinky's hoof. The man looked down over her, confusedly across her face.
But I didn't do a very good job,
She said, her voice still small. You did the best you could, Pinkie Pie, he said, trying to sound something like what it imagined a father would sound like. Without you, the room would never have been used in the first place. He turned back to see her looking at him. A surprised look settled over her. You did okay, Pinkie Pie. You did fine. Finally, after long hours of waiting, her smile had returned to the rooms above the bakery. Carrie and Cupcake walked down the darkened suite out of a while later, gently closing the door behind them. As they walked down the hallway to their room, yawns of their own flitted from them, the two leaning against each other as they went. He waited for her to finish preparing for bed, let the sound of summer night come drifting through the wide windows. As he left the bathroom, she came up to him, sat down on the side of his bed and looked at him, searching through his eyes. Yes, he replied wordlessly. I knew this would be difficult. Yes, his eyes told her. We'll find a way to help her. Yes, his stare stated. We'll help her get through this. Yes, this is a rocky part of the journey. One that I'm so very, very, very glad you're here to help me along. She smiled over him, kissed his nose, forehead, drew his ear over her mouth with the slightest of nibbles. And you wanted kids, she whispered, once more drawing out his laugh, touching her forehead to his as the night air filled the room. The next night they went to dinner at the big house that Corey had built. 6 adult ponies sat there, each enjoying the company of the others, and bounty that the summer had laid before them. Living here looks good on you, Mom, said Carrot, placing a kiss on his mother's cheek as they took their seats. One Court sighed. Cupcake followed her gaze to where 3 plates sat empty chairs. Seeing her older sister so made Cupcake realize she was wistfully recalling the days where her children did not have the hectic responsibilities and social calendars that adolescence seemed to drag along in his wake. Seeking to break the somber tone that her sister's sigh had settled along the table, Cupcake brushed his pocket of what happened with Pinky. In 30 seconds, the 3 older mares at the table began levelly mother advice at them.
It's in her nose, Cupcake. They're from being a new place. No, I got to it. They're mock. You're gonna explore it. Happens all the time. You know that you've had kids of your...
All the faces in the room turned to Warby Quartz. Saw the mare already laying her hoof across her mouth. Inside a second, she was out of her seat and to her sister and brother-in-law, laying her head to each of them.
I'm sorry. I shouldn't mean it that way. I meant that you could learn how to deal with it. When you... Oh, I am an idiot. I'm sorry, sis!
She said, nuzzling her sister.
Oh, it's okay. I understand.
Don't worry about it, so. Cupcake says she entered the nuzzle with one of her own. Quiet returned to the table. The meal progressed, and soon a rumbling voice returned to the topic that sat unanswered across the serving dishes and baskets of rolled.
Hello, said Corey. Clyde did say she had been trouble having before. That he was worried that being on the farm had stifled her. He was even afraid he was killing her, with her not coming off the farm all that often. She may just need some focus, something to latch onto, to grow up from.
Carrot and Cupcake pondered the words of the big stallion as they poured drinks from one another, sat there taking small sips as the conversation rolled across the table.
Why, the same thing happened to me when we first opened our dance studio, said Cheesecake. Didn't it, Wissy? Oh, yes, whispered Wissy Well. One of those 2 days I had to lead you around, help you regain your confidence. You freeze up. Oh, if only I could give her some of my confidence now, said Cheesecake. Too bad dancing isn't her mark. She hasn't said anything about it, has she? Or singing?
Ding, 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 ding! Pot point, pot point, pot point! Near above Carrot and Cupcake filled with a purple haze, as the two simultaneously spat out their drinks and stared at Carrot's mother. For those who only knew Pinkie Pie before the lessons, to see her afterwards as though witnessing a torrent of water had been released from a dam. For those who only knew Pinkie before Cheesecake had become coming around to Secret Cute Corner and helping her find her voice, give rise to her feelings through her song, meeting her was like meeting a new pony, one of energy. For those who knew Pinkie Pie before the lessons that Cheesecake gave, The lessons allowed her to finally break free of her small eternal restraints. It was so they were finally allowed to meet the mayor for the first time. It was as though she was now truly free. She had danced before, or something like it on the farm, but never as openly and with as much joy. She had sung before, or tried to, but nothing like she did now. Her voice was clarion and clear, and it filled the upstairs room with sound as the lessons freed her. As the lesson came to an end, Carrie and Cupcake climbed the stairs, stood in the doorway listening as Cheesecake had led Pinky in another song. As the pink mare twirled and bounced through the hazy summer sun to enter the room, they beamed at it proudly. So looking upon, they could only clap, pound their hose on the wooden boards, and smile back at her as he bounded over to them. The four descended the stairs and sat around the parlor behind the kitchen, drinking iced juices to fend off the heat, as the warm day crossed in through the screens that sat in the windows.
I'm very proud of you, Pinkie Pie,
said Cheesecake, looking up to her student as the young mare collected delirious cuts.
You've made so much progress. Are you happy, dear? Do you feel like though it's helped?
Ryan needs help, she said while bouncing cuts on her nose, turning around and bore them with an effortless display of heritage and skill. Pinkie Pie stopped and looked over the three other ponies in the room before her happy expression once more selling Cheesecake.
You know, it was really, really, really nice of you to do that, because no pony else had ever helped me to sing and dance before except for my Green Pie. And on the farm, we never danced before I got my mark, and we didn't sing that much even after I got it. But my Green Pie tried to teach me.
He simply waited as Pinkie stopped to breathe.
You remind me of my Green Pie,
Pinkie concluded, placing an extra emphasis on the last few words. With that, she leaned back to Cheesecake, nuzzled her, and gave her a small laugh.
Yep, you do,
she said something in a sing-song tone, gathering up the cups in once more and disappearing out of the room in a single bound.
She was beautiful too.
The statement hovered in the air for a few moments as the sound of Pinkie Pie washing dishes and singing with her new voice rang out from the kitchen. Carrot and Cupcake looked to the older mare, saw Cheesecake still staring out to where the young pony had leapt. Mom? Asked Carrot as he stood, walked across the relay. She looked up to him, a sort of serene happiness across her face. A few big wet tears lingering on her as soon as her son touched his forehead to hers. Strings of causality, the fairy fabric of fate, had wound themselves very tightly to Carrot Cake and Cupcake. In truth, they could not know how tightly. That evening the strings moved very visibly, binding them even closer to another. He had been reading, but found himself thirsty for something more than tap water. Made his way downstairs. To his surprise, she was not in the parlor, working on some small crafts that he had left her. Carrot entered the little den as an office for the bakery. There he saw his wife writing, her head down across the panes as he worked across the pencil in her mouth. What's your writing, Sugar Plum? He asked as he tried to peek over her shoulder. She startled suddenly and gave a yelp, and tried to cover what had been writing with both her hooves, as she seemed to lift in the air in alarm. Oh, nothing, she answered unconvincingly. Really? She said, trying to glance around her, only drawing the paper close to herself. And then he arched an eyebrow. Thought passed through him. He did his best to copy her little cunning smile. You wouldn't dare, she answered, recognition going through her face as he stood over her, pressed her gently to the pillow, pinning it in place. You gotta tell me what it is, honey bun, he said with a malicious grin. She wrapped the paper to her chest, looked up to him with a smirk wrapped in a pout. Okay then, he said with the top of his mane. Cupcake's tickle spots were well known to Carrot as his own name. She laughed and squealed and found them one by one. A sort of danced across her ribs, along her neck, and up down her legs. When her head tossed to one side, he was soon to the other. As he brought her forelegs to shield herself, his hoof went to the space beneath them. For Carrot, it seemed like a concert. He, the conductor of a symphony that filled the little room with her laughter. As he sped his hoof along her, the sound of her voice ringing out with giggles entertained the stacks of paper, the notebooks, and the cup full of pencils and quills. The paper had long since fallen away from her chest, yet she did not reach for it. If she wanted to tell him, he would, and he knew she no longer had any secrets from him. That if she was not telling him, then there was a good reason. What was important for him to know, she would tell him. He trusted his wife, as he trusted him. Besides, he was otherwise occupied with the squealing, giggling, laughing, screaming form of a beautiful blue mare pinned beneath him. Whatever a single piece of paper spoke of could hardly compete with that for his attention. Or so he thought.
Oh, get it, stop!
She called it as he tried to catch her breath. But then as the song ended, he parted his hose and stopped pressing her tail against the pillows, allowed her to move again, even as he still stood over her. Cupcake folded her forelegs down to her chest and looked up to him with her rosy eyes as he gave a few more satisfied giggles. Her expression became slightly more serious as he rolled to her side and gathered up the paper. He looked it over with her. It was a legal document of some kind. Each space filled out with a perfect little writing. The one that was oddly the same whether hoof or mouth written.
I wanted to be surprised,
she said, her voice slightly trembling. I'm sorry, he said after hearing his voice catch. I'm sorry, honey, but I just...
No,
she said, running her hoof across his foreleg.
It's okay. I just been thinking of how this would change things, and I wanted to be sure about it.
He looked down across her once more, saw the reflection deep in those eyes.
I've been wondering about this, thinking about it quite a bit. A lot of couples do it, and when Pinky mentioned it all those weeks ago, it kind of jumped up at me,
she said, laying the paper flat. Carrot looked at the sheet again, scanned it for meaning. Right across the top stood a rather officious-looking title, one that was so banal for a meaning it carried. Form 47B, legal request for official change of name. He looked down to her again, saw a dawning sentiment growing over her, one that made her very happy.
A lot of my couples are doing this now, you see,
she said, turning back to him.
And ours is really easy to do. I just become Cupcake. 2 words instead of Cupcake 1. That way we be...
The cakes, he answered, his own expression growing soft as he ran his hoof across her shoulder.
Do you think it's a good idea?
She asked as she looked up to him constantly.
I mean, it's not that big of a change, I think it's sweet.
Sweetie, he said, a treat by any other name. With that, he lowered his head to her, touched his lips across her neck. Ginger snap across her cheek. Sugar plum upon her lips. Honey bun, he concluded while staring down at her. What taste does this sweet? She smiled up at him, took the pencil in her mouth. With that, Cupcake signed her new name and laid the pencil down. Cupcake raised her head once more to meet her husband's offered nose.
I love you, Mr. Cake,
she said as they made the soft muscles across one another. I love you, Mrs. Cake, he said, the touch flew to her back to him. As they parted from the touch of one another, he realized he was still standing over her. Still stood in the position of the defender, gazing a bow that only ended a few minutes before. He looked down over her and saw her realize the same thing.
Oh,
she said, smiling about him.
We're in the middle of something.
Don't forget to nibble behind her ears. Came the voice of Carrot, replacing Pinkie Pie. Bouncing by the wide open door to fence the drink for the kitchen.
That's where I usually used to get real good when she would babysit us.
Oh, is that a fact? He says. Pinkie politely closed the den door. Pinkie only smiled to herself as she saw a look of pleasant surprise go across Cupcake's face as his long-forgotten secret had been revealed. One that was to be explored in earnest. Close the door. Strings of causality. They are the very fabric of fate. They stretch and twist, snarl and get caught and snagged. They also lie beside one another, are woven and knit. One can only tie, though many bind, and hundreds clothe. The story of the journey of the Cakes had been on was more than just a story of their own romance. It was a story of how their love had drawn these strings around them, how they had tied others to them, and how ponies around them had all been draped in the fabric they had knit. Had Ivory's script not been bound to Cupcake, Nancy would never have had anyone to help her in her plan of game of this, and Ivory would not have grown up without any pony to confide in. May have not had anyone she trusted enough to gain her confidence that won her the office of mayor. Of course, without Ivory, there would have been no meeting at all. The one who pulled Carrot and Cupcake together, pulled willfully on the strings. If Ivory's father Ledger had not employed Carrot, they would have never seen each other in the first place. And if Ivory had not told him of his part in the game of this, he may not have told Corey about their relationship. That would never have begun. Never have been allowed to prosper and bloom. Strings. The strings that were once limp when taut as Cheesecake and Wishing Well reunited through the love of their children as their friendship had been reborn. If the strings had not pulled Clyde toward the door of the hospital alone in trust, there would never have been a place for Pinky to grow. So he would perhaps still be on that rock farm, her mark going to waste. Love had made strings. The love that the Kings had let grow between them, and that covered all the points in their lives. Love had, unknowingly, conquered all. If Carrot had not come into Corey's life through his daughter, they would now still be filled with rage, owned by his wrath. Strings had broken down his perceptions, made him leave his brutality behind. The string that wrapped onto his erstwhile son, and more than just freedom of his anger. They had freed his soul and given him the last few years of happy reflection upon those he loved. Yet, there was a price to pay for living as he had, living wrapped in rage and fury. A physical body can only take so much.
Word of warning. This is going to be a major tearjerker. Hope you're ready for it.
He'd never been able to let go fully, but he mastered it, learned to control it. The strings had pulled out of his life, but now were letting him know the consequences were in place. His decades worth of wrath were coming to claim him. The strings had made themselves known as a feeling behind his right eye. One day he could sense the late summer sky fell over them. He stood from the porch, tried to yawn, but had to catch himself as he wobbled. With that, he wheeled Western well into the den, then conferred to a downstairs bedroom. She was going through her frail phase again. At his own age and stiffness, he trusted himself less and less to use the lift. The stairs no longer being a possibility. As Cheesecake prepared Wishing Well for bed, he stood in the bedroom, felt himself wavering on his legs. He called upon his own earth-poly magic to anchor him. As it moved through him, he felt a catch behind his right eye, felt the blood moving there incorrectly as his own magic called back to him that something was wrong. He was so tired. Cheesecake helped Wishing Well into bed, said good nights. To his surprise, she felt Corey's hoof on her foreleg.
I can't tell you how much it means to me that you're here, taking care of my darling. It means a lot to me, Cheesecake. Thank you,
he said, forcing his trademark rumble to his voice to hide the growing weakness. To his surprise, he offered him an embrace, one that they shared before he showed her to the door.
Oh, are you making googly eyes at my best friend, love?
Chatty Wishing Well in a playful tone. His reply was almost tearful.
Please, don't even choke out there. I've only had one, darling,
he said as he gently turned to her, so she laid upon the bed with her face to home.
All I ever loved you, Wish. You've been only my love.
Oh, Clay.
Wishing Well spoke with concern in her high-air voice, feeling a strong emotion hanging over the bed she could not place. She looked upon her gray-maned husband, the pony seeming so pale in the moonlight.
I'm sorry, love,
she whispered as she reached for him.
I was only joking. You know I don't think that.
Corey leaned forward to kiss his wife. As they lay there in the gaze of the other, he wrapped his hose around hers. Together they spoke about their lives for a little while, the happy and the sad. As he did, he waited for her to fall asleep. He fought to stay awake, fought the wavering sense of withdrawal that was falling through him. As they lay there in their bed, with their hose upon one another, he whispered,
I love you, Wish.
I love you, darling. And with that, she became the last thing he saw as he closed his eyes. About 2 hours later, Corey realized he no longer had any need of his body. So he left it lying there on the bed. He looked across the deflated form. He saw all the old scars and gray mane that had once been black. The mark of a ladder reaching out of the pit of stone.
Meh.
He said, leaving his aches and pains and remorse there in a heap of flesh. He let his kiss wave across Wishing Well one last time, and then moved the crowd across his home. He moved down the path and past the gate as the world sat in a perfect light that flowed from neither sun nor moon. He did not walk. He did not have a body to move. Instead, he saw himself as he always wished to be. As he went, dang it. I can do this. I can do this. All the hate, fear, anger, wrath, the feelings of doubt that fell from him. They dropped from him as though they were plates of armor, declining as they fell to the earth and dissipated in clouds of magic of Vasta. He was running. He felt himself young again. Felt as he had not sensed a 12-year-old who had not been robbed and not been hunted. Above him, the stars shone brighter than any he had ever seen, and he was aware of them. Felt them. At once, he was aware of many things. Of his sons and their homes in Manhattan, and the officer tent of his daughters lying close to the ones they loved. He was aware of his granddaughters too, one asleep in her bed, the other sleeping across books. Of his grandson trying to sneak back home after his curfew. He laughed. He laughed long and loud as he ran. Not tired in the least.
Where?
He called, his grandson seeming to catch the word as a whisper in the breeze. And once his black mane was flying around him, caught in the winds that rose from a shaft of shimmering light. He flew to it. And as he came closer, a figure stood there. One that was vast, powerful, angelic. He looked upon the face, and realized it was a pony. One that he had last seen nearly 4 decades earlier. One that he held close to his chest as his short life came to an end. He nuzzled his son. And with that, the boy led him down the long stairs. Well-being and a sense of completeness. Tossing over him as he went down the steps. There was a great fast pull, and with his son, he went pelting across the short beach down into the waters. As the warm waters washed over him, he felt the presence of many ponies. His own parents, his brother who had been killed in the wars, and those and so many others met him as his soul became his water, as love itself was liquid. And he floated through it. It was made of it. Being quarry means finally being free to let all your intentions fall away. Being quarry means there's finally an ending that consumes you. Only rest. Being quarry means entering the well of souls. And finally, finding peace. Sorry, guys. This part of the story always makes me sad. I've lost family too. I lost my dad when I was too young. And I've lost so much more. And I guess that's one of the big reasons why I get so emotional doing these. I really am not afraid to hide my emotion when I'm doing these live reads. If I find something hilarious, I break. Although I do try to hide my laughter. If I find something that touches me deep down and causes me to cry, I'll do it. I hold my emotions on my sleeve and I don't care who knows it. Because I feel like a good story, and even a great one, should be able to touch you right here in your heart. And I feel like you guys should be able to see what my emotions are as I read these. Because this is the way I've always been. God, this story's great.